Just want to give a little shout out to our sponsors. Our first being Inverted Gear. Inverted Gear sells rash guards, gi, shorts, the whole gambit of jiu-jitsu gear. Go to invertedgear.com. They make high quality stuff. They even have the Show the Art Inverted Gear gi that you can buy. Very cool, very high quality. If you type in the coupon code ShowtheART15, you will save 15% on your next order. Sold to the man with the mouse. Go to invertedgear.com, type in the coupon code, save yourself some money. Next sponsor is VapeRite. If you're looking for some CBD oil that you can vaporize and help with your recovery from training hard, or some people say that CBD oil allows them to relax a little better, especially before going to sleep, go to vapebright.org and type in the coupon code ShowtheArt and you can save some good money. It's high quality stuff. I use it after training all the time. A couple of swigs of this vapor that is not burning your lungs and destroying your body. In fact, healing your body. Vapebright.org, type in the coupon code ShowtheArt. Of course, our next sponsor is Chimera Coffee. Chimera and coffee with a K. Go to chimeracoffee.com, type in the coupon code ShowtheArt, and save some money on their nootropic infused coffee. And Google nootropics. See what you find. If it's something you like, might as well order it with your coffee, all in one. You brew it in any coffee machine. You get your caffeine fix. You get your nootropic fix. And you get to think and be more energized, and all at the same time. So go to chimeracoffee.com, type in them coupon codes, and save some moolah. Our last sponsor is ModCup. ModCup, ModCup.com. ModCup serves up the freshest coffee around. And when I mean fresh, I don't mean it in the slang way. I mean it in the literal way. All their coffee is roasted and served and sold within 2 weeks. If not, it goes straight to the trash. They never have to trash it because it gets sold out. That's how good it is. ModCup is a local roaster by us, and they get all their coffee from the 1% of the world. And when I say 1%, I mean the 1 percentile of quality. So high quality coffee from around the world. Go to their website, type in the coupon code ShowtheArt, and save yourself money. They also have the Cascara chocolate. And the Cascara chocolate is basically they take the fruit shell. Coffee is a fruit. And then what they do is they take that fruit, they dry the shell off of it, and then what you're left with is that coffee bean that everybody talks about. So ModCup, they take that fruit shell, and then they make a tea out of it. They make an iced tea out of it, and now they grind it up and they infuse it with some dark chocolate. It's really good, kind of fruity. Sometimes it reminds you of hibiscus. If you're into the hibiscus, try their chocolate, their Cascara chocolate.
Hey, Abe, how you doing?
Hey, Dave, how you doing, man? I'm good. How's everything?
Going pretty good. Pretty good.
Awesome.
Just, besides dealing with body injuries and whatnot.
Where did you get injuries from? Jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, just accumulated over 20 plus years of training. I'm actually got my MRIs in and going to see a doctor tomorrow to see what the results of those are. But I got 2 bum knees and a shoulder.
Oh, man, that sucks, man. Jiu-jitsu
Well, I'm
and
actually
wrestling,
looking
right?
forward to it because it's been like a good 3 years where nothing's really changed. So I think it's just about time I get this fixed.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it'll allow you to train more comfortably.
Yeah, no, just like for example, this past year I haven't done any wrestling just because my knees they don't hold up well on my feet. So
Yeah,
and
knees are the
I
worst,
love
man.
to wrestle, but it's like I remember we were doing just a simple like sumo game, where someone just pushes you're trying to push somebody out of the ring, and
Yeah.
someone tried to push me out, and I just stepped sideways, and my knee popped just by taking a side step.
Ah, crap.
Yeah, I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
Do you know what the nature of the injury is?
I have no idea. Like I've only done one MRI, and that was like 6 years ago, I think, after the Polaris heel hook
Okay.
knee bar combo, and there was nothing really happened there. He's like, well, it just looks like everything is torn, but nothing serious. You'll heal. All right.
What? Everything is torn, but nothing serious. Don't worry.
Yeah, but I was already training then, so I was like, okay. So you didn't really tell me anything new.
Right. That's good, man. Well, I'm glad that you're getting yourself fixed up and healed up, because especially knee injuries, they're the worst. Do you think you're going to compete after this?
No, I've hung a hat a while ago. I think the last time I competed was 2013.
Yeah. And
it wasn't. I mean, I was already injured then, but that wasn't why I stopped. I just didn't really have the fire anymore. I didn't have that. You need to feel like you have something to prove, and
right.
I just didn't.
Yeah, you need that juice. You need that that wire that like hits you, zaps you in the back to say like, I want to win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I would just work hard, and I was training smarter for that, because like even then I couldn't run anymore. So I would be like on treadmills and bikes to do cardio work and stuff. But I was training because I felt like I was obligated to. Like I'm like,
right.
I need to go there and do this. But it was a goal that wasn't really like burning for me anymore. Like even now you talk about it, I like to train, I like to spar, and if I compete, yeah, sure, but like it's not a dying, burning fire like it used to be.
Sure.
So I'd be selling myself short if I was to go out there and compete, especially against somebody who does have that.
Right. So not even any like jiu-jitsu charity matches or anything like that?
Probably not. I mean,
I'm like pushing you hard. I don't know why.
It's not there. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I've never said officially I'm retired.
Right.
But it's pretty much been that way.
Right. And what are some of your goals now that you're not competing?
Just to pass my teachings, anything that I can show. I've been doing more seminars now. I've been putting up content daily now. So
yeah,
just trying to spread out what I've learned over the years and share it with people and just enjoy myself,
For sure. Question. Do you consider the Barado Plata a Kimura?
For sure. It's a Kimura of the legs, just like an omoplata is. I'll be honest with you. Like I've seen a few of the Barado Plata stuff, and I've tried to do it myself. I haven't really had much success with it, and that's not a diss on it. It's more just ignorance, really. Like I would love to go train with Barata and just see his spin in it.
Right.
I've been able to hit it a couple times, but like not. I seem to get to the same spots with it and just get stuck, So
right. I've been playing with it a lot lately, and it's like anything. I feel like you just need to really be into it, because you don't find those positions very often. They're few and far apart. But I kind of like it. I've been experimenting and finding a lot of cool little ways, especially off the Kimura grip itself. There's endless Barado Platas from there. So.
Yeah, no, because I mess around with reverse Kimuras,
right,
all the time. And you can set them up from there pretty simply, especially from top position or whatnot. But I just really, I don't know, like I get to like a finishing position of like top mount or whatnot, but I'm just not getting enough pressure in it. So I'm sure it's just my understanding of it. And I need to work in it a bit more.
Right.
It's funny, someone had showed me a video of what they called the ballerina Kimura. I don't know if you saw that.
No. But what is that all
about? It's
a
guy. It's hilarious. It's a guy from 50-50, and the guy's trying to straight ankle lock him. Okay. And what he does with the foot that's getting straight ankle locked, he keeps his toes up and pulls the shoulder in, and his other, and he kicks out.
What was that last part? I didn't, for some reason, the feed got cut out. I didn't hear that last word.
50-50. The ankle that's getting caught, he's pulling the foot inwards so that the shoulder comes closer to him. And then his other leg, he's pushing down on the wrist. So essentially Kimuring him with his feet.
Interesting.
I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sure if that actually worked, but that's freaking hilarious.
Right.
He got someone with it.
Nice, man. Yeah. Like I feel like also with the Barada Plata, it helps to be a little thinner, like a thin guy. I can like I'm not a really big guy, like thick everywhere, big legs, big arms. So I can imagine it's a little harder because I find myself finding the most difficulty when I'm threading like the arm through. So I don't
Gotcha.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe because you got too much muscle mass, it's a little hard for you.
Well, you're being very generous. It could just be body fat as well.
I mean, your body fat is somebody else's muscle mass, you know?
Yeah.
Awesome, man. I'm proud to say I just got my black belt after 10 and a half, almost 11 years
nice,
of training.
man.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Very cool. Who do you get it under?
Under my original coach, his name is Marcos Duarte.
Nice.
He trains out of Fabio Clemente in New York City, which is Checkmat now.
Okay.
So, we're in New Jersey. We're right across the river, and we go there, maybe once every month. It used to be once every month. Now it's like once every couple of months, just running the martial arts school. But, yeah, it's been fun. It's a cool journey, and it's a huge honor. So, yeah.
Absolutely, man. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Not trying to, like, gloat or anything, but spread the karma.
Man.
Spread the good karma.
It's something you should talk about for sure.
Yeah, man. What was the biggest thing that you learned throughout jiu-jitsu, getting to black belt and beyond? Or black belt level, whatever you want to call it.
For me, it's like when I got my black belt, I don't even know the date, to be honest with you. I have such a terrible memory, Abe. Like if you ask me about my childhood, I could barely tell you anything.
I'm kind of the same way,
it's
honestly.
A story. Like I'm like a goldfish, really low memory, but I can learn things real fast. But when I started, and I was competing essentially at black belt level, 2002, 2001. Like I fought Gordo like in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm looking back at myself now, like, well, I had the skill that was needed to compete at a black belt level. I don't think I really got there until maybe like 2009.
Huh.
Like mentally, like having and I guess what are some of the things I would say that I think are probably more important than transcends to everything in life? Would it be training smart?
Okay.
And everybody likes to say, "Oh, embrace the grind. You gotta train hard," And there's a certain truth to that, but there's also a lot that's being missed out. Because if you tell me, Dave, I'm training very hard, twice a day, blah blah blah, I don't know if you're doing things right. Because training hard doesn't imply that you're actually helping yourself. Because you could be training hard by sparring 24/7, and that's hard. That's very hard. But you're also damaging yourself.
Right.
The analogy I always give people, training hard to me is like trying to open a door by banging it down with your fists. While training smart is using the handle.
So simple.
So I think what's happened is, like, I know for myself, I've trained hard for most of my career. And to me, it stemmed because I started in wrestling. And in wrestling, the culture is train hard, grind, and bang people out.
Right.
And the hero of wrestling is Dan Gable. Right. And Dan Gable is infamous for being carried off the mats because he trained so hard.
Right, ruthless.
That he just had nothing left, literally, and they had to drag him out. And he ended up winning, having that illustrious career, winning the Olympics, winning the Worlds. But what they don't talk about is that by the time he's in his 30s, his neck is fused and he can barely move now.
Yeah, so true.
So there's a cost, to going that high. And I don't think that's the only way to do it. And obviously it isn't. A lot of people have been successful without doing it. So people in wrestling, though, they still follow that paradigm, like train super hard.
Yeah. And
that works when you're young, right? When you're, like when most of these kids, you're in middle school, you're in high school, you could get hit by a car and you're okay in a couple days.
Right. You could grapple the next day, literally.
So you can abuse that train hard mentality and just grind, and you'll get through it. I know, like when I was in high school, when I finished my season, I suddenly felt injuries that I just been ignoring. Like I had my ankle was like a freaking watermelon, and my knees were like buckling, and my shoulder was all messed up. But you would have never known when I was wrestling. Like, and the amount of matches you're doing as well is a very high volume. You know, like in one season you're getting 60, 70 matches. You know,
Right.
so that's like unparalleled to anywhere else. So that now getting into more to the Bronze. So because you're training so much at that early age, you think, oh, this is the way people train, and this is the way I'm always going to train my whole life. And that's not going to be true if you're going to have any like longevity in your career.
Right.
You know, like I think once you start getting into late 20s, early 30s, and mid 30s for sure, you're going to feel that difference in recovery. And now it's like, man, I can't do, you know, like 2-3 hour sessions a day. It's just not going to happen, especially at a grinding pace. And you think, oh, you know what? Now I'm being a bitch. You know, like I just, it's a lot. I'll tell you, because that's how I felt. Like, in that last camp, I'm like, man, how come I'm not training so hard? What's wrong with me? You know, it's like, no, it's nothing wrong with you. It's called, life.
Right.
You know?
It's just called
you're not
getting old.
You're not supposed to push so hard.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's beneficial either. I think the hard training is good in the beginning, like especially when you're young. Get it, because you need to build some mental toughness so you know you have it. But you don't lose mental toughness.
Right.
At least in my opinion. Like once you've proven that you have it, it sticks with you. Like
right. Yeah, that's so true.
I can grind out anybody, and I haven't gotten any tougher since I was in high school. Like I would like to say I have, but I haven't. I was as tough as I was gonna get.
Right.
You know, from there. Like, and I went on to fight. I had my nose broken, and been choked unconscious, all that. Like, I didn't build new toughness. I've had it, and I developed it. And I wasn't always like some people say, oh, you're born with heart.
Hello.
Hey.
There we go. Yeah,
I think my connection dropped.
Cool. So you were talking about mental toughness and, going hard and training early in your younger years and then tapering down and training smarter in your older years.
Correct. Yeah. So I feel now this is something that I think is more important, especially as I'm seeing perhaps what I would call the consequences of training hard for too long and not really addressing, concerns of the body, So I think for me, that's a more important message and lesson that I've learned, especially for these younger guys coming in now. I don't want them making the same mistakes. And I still hear the same mantra being spread, like, oh, you got to train hard. And it's going to grind people out much faster than you think it needs to. And I don't think helping them either. I think a lot could be done with training smart. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you still got to mix in doing your sparring or doing your shark bait rounds and stuff. But it's got to be more calculated.
Sure.
If you want to keep people in longer, because essentially every training should have a goal. Like, what are you trying to do? But once they've proven a guy is tough, I don't need to prove anymore that he's tough. At least in my mind, I could be wrong. I personally don't think you get, you lose toughness without something weird happening.
Right. And you hear about all these like studies coming out and all these professional MMA and jiu-jitsu trainers that they all talk about that training smarter, tracking your training sessions, figuring out what your workload is, figuring out what your energy levels are, and then going about it that way as opposed to the old mentality. But like you said, it does make sense, the equation, to train and build that mental toughness early on and then start training a little smarter once you have the mental toughness for longevity, because that's the most important thing, right?
Correct. Yeah, you want to be able to train and compete for a long time. You don't want to have a career cut short, especially because your championship years, from what we've seen, is going to be in your 30s.
Yeah.
Right? Like most of our UFC champs, were in their 30s when they hit their stride.
Yeah.
But this, and I think that's starting to change a little bit too now, because we're getting a lot of younger guys in that are starting now, like when they're kids.
Sure.
And so now we're getting people in their 20s. But at least earlier on, most of our, I think almost all the champions were all in their 30s, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
So,
even now, some of the champions that are in their 20s, you could tell they still have a lot of growth left in them. So even if they're not the champion by the time they're 30, they might be the best they are because their body hasn't broken down fully yet. But they're still learning and maturing in their game by the time they're in their 30s.
correct. And just telling you from my own personal experience, like me in my 30s, my technique level is obviously way above what it was when I was competing, you know, in my 20s. Like,
Yeah.
drastically. Like, I could smoke myself easily, you know, in my 20s with the technique I have now. So, and you'll be stronger when you're in your 30s as well. You just are not going to have that necessarily that speed and the recovery, really.
Yeah. You know, one thing I noticed for sure, like I'm about to turn 29, and I have noticed, like, even me, as young as I am, I do feel a difference than when I was training as a 20-year-old, as a 21-year-old. Like by Friday, I feel like I can't train. Like I feel exhausted, tired, drained. Like the recovery is slowing down, and I'm not even 30 yet. So I can't imagine these people that are training twice as much as I am, with twice as many, you know, high-level teammates, and just keeping that up. That pace is hard. Yeah.
No, for sure. For me, it really hit me like around 33, 34, where suddenly the body just stopped responding the way that I wanted it to. And when I would tell people that, and I teach a lot of people who are older than me, they're late 30s, 40s, you know.
Yeah.
So when I tell them, oh man, I'm feeling, you know, getting old and whatnot, they're like, dude, you don't even know yet. You got to get into your 40s. I'm like, oh,
Wow.
Christ. If it's this bad now,
Right,
I'm gonna be
imagine when
able
you're
to move. If it's getting there worse.
sure.
But
Yeah. One thing that
yeah.
I noticed too is I just started really, I guess because I feel like I can't train as much jiu-jitsu, and also you kind of get tired of the whole, I don't know, you just get tired of training when you're in the gym teaching all the time. Sometimes you need a change of scenery. So I really started going to like a strength and conditioning place and you know, actually working out, like lifting weights and, you know, doing those kind of like CrossFit style workouts. But I noticed that feels like a good time to train hard. To go in there, that's the time with obviously good technique, but that's the time I'm trying to really exhaust myself and kill myself. But when I'm training jiu-jitsu, I always feel like I need to improve on the technique, and I don't always feel the need to kill myself in the gym. So I feel like maybe that's a good option for people if they're looking for something to make them feel like complete and satisfied. Because some people, you know, they train. If they don't train hard, if they don't feel like they're going to throw up, they don't feel like they accomplished something. And, you know, the weight room could be that supplement for that.
For sure. And let me clarify that too, because I don't want people to misinterpret what I'm saying. Like, oh, training hard means that you don't get tired. You know,
Right.
if you don't train hard, you're not getting that. No, you could train, you know, smart and be completely exhausted, right? What I mean is, like, especially when you think of MMA, if you train hard, there's no that you're not going to get injured. And by that is because if you're there is impact damage being done. There's unavoidable that you're doing damage to your body. There's just no way around it. Even if I'm the only guy throwing punches, you're gonna hurt your hand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you're playing against the odds there, right? Like enough time and training hard, and you're accumulating enough damage. Even when you're wrestling, you're moving around heavy weights all the time in weird angles that you're not anticipating. It's gonna add up.
Right.
You know?
And it's just a numbers game at that point.
Yes, it is a numbers game, exactly.
Yeah.
So if I'm doing something that I know, like sprints or, you know, doing like box jumps or whatever, I know everything that's going into it, and I'm not necessarily doing any damage to myself. I'm just using my muscles to their fullest.
Sure.
Right. So I think there's a distinction there. So yeah, for sure. Like if you're weightlifting or you're running, you can push yourself a lot. You can push yourself hard,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and get great benefits out without it, and without necessarily shortening your shelf life.
Right.
In fact, you're probably increasing it there.
Right.
Because as long as you also give yourself the proper recovery,
sure,
after your workouts and whatnot.
You ever seen Michael Chandler work out? Bellator fighter?
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of training with him and coaching him when I was in Alliance back in 2000. What was it? 2011, I think.
That guy's an animal,
and he's a workhorse.
Holy crap! How was that like training with the guy or training him? Being in the same room as him, what kind of intensity does he bring?
Oh, I mean, he's intense, man, and he can push. All those guys there at Alliance, they have a good work ethic, and those are guys I'll tell you, for example, too, that they do train smart. And that was actually probably one of the first exposures that I've seen at a high level of people training smart.
Okay.
Again, back then I was still training hard, and when I came there, I noticed that they would have a morning session, and it was a good. I would consider it a hard session because I was the one running it. So
okay,
it was a good pace, but then in the evening it was a little more relaxed. They focused on technique, and in the afternoon they had their own session, and it was different to what I was doing, which was either 2-3 sessions hard, each one, and I'm thinking, man, they're not getting enough cardio work, or they're not, getting up this, but none of those guys gas, and they all work really good. So that started a process of being like, hey, I should be looking at this, because these are obviously, you got guys like Dominic Cruz and Phil Davis, Michael Chandler and Jeremy Stevens, and
oh my gosh,
they're at the top of the game, and this is how they're doing it. So yeah, for sure, the head coach, Eric De Fiero, he does a really good job with his guys, and he understands it really well.
Right. And do you still keep in touch with those guys, or do you just follow them on Instagram like I do?
I follow them on I know Phil. I follow on a few of the other ones, and every so often I'll hit up Eric, and I saw who was it, Dominic here in Las Vegas not too long ago.
Yeah, those guys are. I was watching Michael Chandler's Instagram story, and he was doing an explosive pull up, and the guy on the other side of the bar would throw a medicine ball at him, and he would have to push it back to the guy in between each explosive pull up.
Holy Christ!
And it's just holy crap! He's just so explosive, and it's hard enough just to do an explosive pull up and release your hands from the bar, and then do 5 of those. But he did 10 of these, and he was slapping that ball as his hands. It's the guy's incredible.
Yeah, it's unreal.
Yeah,
that is unreal.
Right. Now, talking about MMA, did you catch the fights last weekend?
Yes, I saw the main card. Very interesting.
What'd you think of Joanna and Tecia Torres?
Well, I can tell you first, both of those ladies worked the whole fight. I think the issue really is just Tecia could never really get the fight to the ground, and couldn't, and that was pretty much her game plan. You could hear the coaches and whatnot, but she had some success from the outside. But it seems that as the fight wore on, it just got worse and worse for her,
Right.
And JJ is just able to keep the pressure, and she started landing her kicks, front kicks, and.
What I noticed was that just from before the fight started, JJ uses her reach a lot with her striking. She's like a long puncher, a long jabber. She steps in with the 1-2. She throws a lot of kicks. So she's a long, reachy, rangy striker. But Tecia is a short puncher. She's short anyway, but she's also particularly short with her punches. She always has to get really close. Her arms rarely fully extend at the end of the punch. So I thought right there, just that common fact would push the fight into Joanna's favor. Add that with Joanna's ability to stop the takedown, and she proved it right there. It was very hard for Tecia to get inside and be successful. She really needed to land shots before the takedown happened, or else what happened. Joanna saw everything coming.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I didn't realize how tall JJ was for her height. I think she was like 5'6" for 115 pounds.
Right.
That's really, and then, and like you said, Tisha's
5'1".
not 5'1", so that's a big height advantage because, I mean, even like for males, like usually we're talking about guys who are like 5'11" to like 6'3".
Yeah.
So when you look at it proportionally, it's a huge jump. You're 5'1" and someone's 5 inches taller than you.
Yeah.
Especially if they're like a elite striker, like
Joanna
is. And yeah, that's the other thing you mentioned too. Like even the takedowns, JJ does a great job of defending on the fence, and she does exactly the right thing. Turns her hips sideways, uses the overhook, fights with the underhook, and she's also busy. She's firing a lot of knees, so like you can't just sit there either and press because you're taking damage.
Right. I was gonna say that like she's one of those brave clinchers where when she's clinching, whether she's on offense or defense, she's brave enough to like throw a knee, throw an elbow, retain her underhook, all while defending the takedown. A lot of people are too worried about the takedown that they forget those little things, and a lot of times the offense distracts the person, and you can implement your full defense. And I feel like that's what she did.
For sure, and I would say you're absolutely right. A lot of people get scared because they think if I throw that knee and he times it, now he's going to snatch that leg up, or I'm going to lose my balance or whatnot. But at the same time, if you sit there the whole round and not move, you're also losing the round too, right? So I think, like you said, it's just a matter of timing, and she clearly has it because Tisha would have to let go because after eating a couple of knees, it's like, well, if I sit here, I'm just going to get body KO'd if I sit here long enough.
Yeah.
And the coach was telling Tisha, right, like don't take her to the fence. But like she would rush with the doubles, and I mean, it's kind of hard to avoid too. But like every time she shot in, she would just blast her into the fence, and then essentially that was already it. Like now you lost it. Like you have to try to get her down.
Like chain wrestler her in the middle of the ring as opposed to where she's good at using the fence.
Correct. I think more and more people are getting savvy to like defending on the fence. It's funny because for some people, being on the fence is a positive. I find like I want to be on the fence taking you down because I know you're not running around anywhere.
Right.
But at the same time, if you're taking me down, I also want to be on the fence.
Right.
Because I know how to use it not to get taken down. So I guess it just depends on your level of comfort on both sides of that coin. But I think that, especially nowadays, everybody's pretty good at defending on the fence. It's just like you have to be.
Right. I feel like the fence makes it a little easier physically. Like you don't have to be an explosive person. You don't have to have like as good reaction time to defend the takedown versus in the center, right? Whereas against the fence, you're there. You know you're not going backwards. You know it's going to be hard to take you left or right. You kind of just have to make sure that they don't scoop your legs out from underneath you, and don't get too. And if you keep your back to the fence, they can't. It limits so many things when you're against the fence, versus when you're in the middle of the ring. It's kind of hard. You really have to be good at wrestling defense.
For sure, the fence slows everything down. So you're right. Your timing and speed are not that important anymore because you got this giant barrier holding you up.
Right.
So now a lot of it's about technique. Like you need to have good enough technique to bring this person down.
Right.
And what I see most often, and I understand it as well, is that people who are the guy doing the takedown or the person doing the takedown keeps doing the same thing.
Yeah,
right? Like,
good point.
They get stuck like, I'm doing a double leg, so I'm going to do this double leg for the next however many minutes I'm here in this fence.
Right.
And you got to chain wrestle there hard, because once that person's defended the first time, he's going to defend it the next 50 times. Like he already is in position because since he's on the fence, the position is somewhat static, right? So if I defended it once, I'm still defending it the next few times. So now we got to switch to something else, like go to a single or go to upper body clinch or whatnot.
Right. You know what I've noticed too, Dave? Jiu-jitsu heavy guys, they tend to be pretty good at taking down people when they're against the fence. And maybe it's because they're not even worrying about double legs and single legs. They're more worrying about changing the angle and tripping them, and looking for the back. So they end up finding the angle and taking them down. Whereas a lot of times you see the wrestling heavy person, maybe not the elite wrestlers of the MMA world, but the wrestling heavy people that more wrestling than jiu-jitsu, they focus more on that heavy double, and they end up getting stuck there, like you said.
Yeah, I think it's a good point there. But when you see a lot of the better takedowns off the fence, you're right, they're like inside trips or whatnot, where they're not as focused on just attacking legs. Because when you're doubled over like that, your shoulder and his hips, and you're wrapped around the legs, you're in a very weak body posture for the most part if you're standing, right? And that's draining on you, and you're also not in a position of power. Whereas if you're upright, and you're pressing the guy chest to chest, and then you're working in inside trip or just a regular back trip and spinning off, you're in a better body posture, I think, to attack, and not as draining as you either. And yeah, I think that's probably one of the more stronger points for a jiu-jitsu fighter, is taking the back from there by putting enough pressure and getting underneath the guy where he starts to give his back. And then, like who was it that just did a great one? Renzo Gracie.
Yes,
this fight.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was funny because they showed a video. He was teaching it to Brandon Vera, that same back take, and I think it was in the airport, and he did that same exact thing in his fight. So yeah, I agree with you there. I think the emphasis on tackling the legs is not always. And the other thing, like I said, like you get stuck in the same thing where I'm just going to keep going for takedowns. Like break apart, throw some strikes, and then get back in.
Right.
I think, and there's very few people that do that. Like they're on the legs, you're stuck. So just quickly back out and fire a salvo of punches. Because what's going to happen, guy has to put his hands up to defend, or he's going to throw back. Either way, now his hands are no longer blocking the double anymore.
Right.
And then you shoot back in.
Demetrius Johnson is one of the best at it.
Oh, yes. Yeah, for sure. You got to change the pace. Like fighting's all about deception. If you know what I'm doing, it's very hard to do it. Right. If I can make you think about something else for a split second, that's all I need to get my entry.
How do you feel about the people that say overload your opponent? Throw everything at them. This kind of kick, that kind of kick, this kind of punch, that kind of fake, this takedown, throwing everything out there, and then kind of making them feel very hesitant because of that, and then implementing your game plan.
That works too, right? I mean, Colby Covington, that was his game plan. He just massive amounts of pressure. And again, another guy coming from a wrestling background, so like he's grinding you. And he had
Dos Anjos.
Dos Anjos, and he just kept pressure, and it was a very predictable attack. He's just pretty much throwing some hands, rushing in, and then just driving in the fence the whole time. But if you have the cardio for it, and you have the mindset, it will work.
Right.
If you can wilt somebody, as long as you're not getting caught moving in, and you're good enough to avoid some of the pitfalls. Like Colby did a pretty solid job of that. I was impressed because that was 5 rounds of grinding.
Yeah, and that's against somebody like Dos Anjos, who's used to that same style of fighting,
and who's dangerous.
Very dangerous.
Dangerous everywhere, really. So. It does work. Is it the optimal way to fight? I don't think so.
Right.
I don't think that's
because when you meet the person that doesn't back up and is allowing you to just run right into them, it's going to change the way you fight. Now you're probably not going to continue. That's going to throw your game plan off.
Right. I mean, you could have the situation where you get 2 guys who are grinders and they're just going to try to break each other, and they don't, and then you might have this long, epic 5-minute round.
Right.
But what I mean by optimal, like, it's not the most efficient way to win.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
You're using a brute force method. Like if you think of password hacking, right? And you're brute forcing the guy, where I'm just gonna throw everything at you and overload you and eventually overwhelm you just with my amount of output.
Right.
But I wasted a lot of energy in doing that. Now, if I was more strategic or perhaps more technical, I could beat you, maybe by knocking you out or like submitting you without expending as much of myself as necessary.
Right.
So I feel like if that's the only way you're going to win your career is probably going to be shorter just because, at a certain point, you're just going to wear out, or people are going to be able to read you and pick you apart.
Right. I feel like the human body, our energy source, is similar to like any battery. Like eventually that battery just doesn't hold as much, battery power as it once used to. And recharging it doesn't, even then, still doesn't keep the same charge for as long. So how do you extend that battery life? I guess by not depleting it to zero every time you use it, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think when you have to rely on cardio to win all the time, I think it's problematic.
Right. It'll catch up to you.
Because nobody, at least I don't think, wants to go into a fight and saying, I'm going 25-minute round. I'm going to have a title fight. I'm going 25 minutes just grinding the whole time. That's how I win.
Right.
I'm like, I mean, if you have to, you have to. And I'll say I've done that before. Like when I was fighting Zanje in ADCC, this was in 2007, I knew right from the onset, Zanje is bigger than me, he's stronger than me, and I don't like to admit it, but at the time for sure, he was more technical than me, right? So I'm not going to beat him by brawn or, by finesse. I'm going to have to grind him out. So I remember I had lost a match before that in double overtime, and they had told me it was a maximum of 2 overtimes. So in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take Zanje into 20 minutes, and I'm going to beat him there. I'm going to drag him into the deep waters. Because at the moment, I saw that as my only option to win, because I wasn't going to catch him in anything. And then it ended up being 25 minutes because they decided to add an overtime. just to piss me off. Right. But eventually I beat him in the 25-minute match. But again, that's not what I want. I'd rather just submit the guy in like 5 seconds and be gone with it.
Right.
I mean, everybody prefers that more. But if that's the only way I could win because of the current tools that I have, then I use it. But if I have to rely on that on every match, I'm not going to get far.
Right, especially
in a tournament scenario where you're expending energy and you need your next match. In the next match, it's going to add up.
Right, and maybe you get the guy that submitted everybody with savvy, slick technique in 1 minute. So now you're in the finals with a guy. You both had 4 matches. He had a total of 2 minutes fighting. You had a total of 40 minutes. Who's going to win that theoretically?
Exactly. Yeah, the guy who's more fresh for sure. Right. Especially if you consider them, they're equal skilled. And this guy's only put out 5 minutes, and you put out 45 minutes.
Right.
That actually, for me, was a paradigm shift in how I competed, because in that ADCC, I ended up doing 70 minutes of grappling in 4 matches.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So my first match was the shortest one, 10-minute regulation. Second match, double overtime, 20 minutes. Third match with Zanje, 25 minutes. Fourth match, 15 minutes with the overtime with Drysdale. So I've racked up an enormous amount of time. And I'm like, and I was looking who is winning. Well, Marcelo Garcia, he's submitting everybody. Even Robert, besides me, he submitted everybody. Roger Gracie submitting everybody. So I'm like, you know what? I got to focus more on submitting people, because I'm not going to win this tournament, because historically people haven't won this tournament without submitting people.
Right. Interesting.
And I went from doing all, decision matches to like 2009, I had 3 out of 4 submissions in my division, So, and I took a bronze that year. So for me, I know it proved true. I have to go out.
Right. Sometimes you got to switch your strategy based on the hands that are dealt.
Exactly. But then again, even in that same year, when I submitted, Tarsus and Lovato and all these, when I went into the absolute, I faced Cyborg. And again, it's another case of guys bigger, stronger, more flexible, and very technical. And then my brother's instructions to me were grind him. He goes, David, don't do the Kimura trap, and this guy is really big and all that. Just, I want you to grind him. Right. All right. And it worked out. I won in overtime, right? But, so you definitely have to have the cardio to do it when you need to. But I more so in the tournament setting. But if you're fighting somebody, I would hope that you can develop the tools that you need to be able to put them away at any moment.
Right.
You know?
Now, getting back to MMA, someone that I feel kind of switched up his strategy in a sense for his last fight, Jose Aldo. He's normally like the most explosive first round fighter you've ever seen. He's so fast in and out. He's so fast with slipping and punching. And just being like explosive. Not a cardio machine, but explosive, like lightning fast. But this fight against Jeremy Stephens, I thought he looked very much more patient and like more tactical with his energy efficiency. What did you think?
For sure. You know, I know he's come off from a couple losses, so that probably has a lot to do with it. Generally, you know, when you drop a couple matches, you start being more conservative. You're a little more gun shy because you don't just want to, throw down right away. But I think he approached it quite well. You know, I was rooting for Stephens because I trained with him, but he, you could see in the beginning it was Stephens that was doing the pressuring and moving forward. Yes. Like you said, Jose was more backing up, perhaps getting his range in and getting his timing. And then they had one salvo where they exchanged, and I think Aldo got the better of it, and then you could see it shifted. Yes. And Jose was walking him down, and now Stephens was backing up. And I think at that point, that's probably the beginning of the end for Stephens.
Right, like, when a guy like Aldo gets confident, it's very hard to stop him.
Correct. And if you're the guy who's a pressure fighter, generally you're usually the one moving forward. So when you start backing up, that's not a good sign. You know what I mean?
Interesting, yeah. And it's like sometimes that happens in most sports, right? One team is very defensive in the beginning, and then they end up stopping the offense, and then they end up gaining the lead and then never letting it go. And maybe that's kind of what happened. Aldo decided to play a little bit more defense at first, and then once he gained his confidence, he would like take the lead over. Who knows how the rest of the fight would have went? But it was a really good fight nonetheless.
Yeah, those body shots were just brutal. I know how tough a guy like Jeremy is. So when you could put him away and he can't hide a poker face, man, I feel for him. That must have freaking hurt.
And a lot of people were talking about the stoppage. I thought it was a just stoppage when you take that many unanswered punches. He was moving, and obviously Jeremy Stephens could have kept going, but he still took, I think it was 25 total strikes to 0. When you take that many and you're on the defensive and you're trying to escape the whole time, the ref kind of has to stop it. What did you think about the stoppage?
I understand where Jeremy's coming from. All right. He's a warrior. You know, he would rather you probably killed him than him tap out. So I get that. And I'm on the same coin when I'm a fighter. Stop me when I'm unconscious.
Right.
You know? Don't stop me when I'm fighting. But at the same time, being practical, he wasn't getting out of that situation. Right. So the ref did him a favor. And I understand he has to contest anyway, and he's got his pride about him.
Right.
But really, I don't see him getting out of that because that body shot's not going to go away. And he's already turtled up on the ground with Aldo on top of him.
Right.
I have a very hard time
believing.
Let's put it like this. Yeah. There's more scenarios where he gets dramatically hurt more than there are that he manages to miraculously save himself.
Right, right. Yeah, so, absolutely.
Is it early? Maybe. But in this particular fight, it doesn't change the outcome to me. In my mind, I think if you play a million universes where they didn't stop it, the vast majority of them, Aldo is going to be on top.
Right. Or all of them. I mean, it's hard to even say that. I mean, he was really putting a lot of work on him. It would have to be Aldo just decides, you know what? I'm not going to hit him anymore. I'm kind of tired. And as early in the second round as it was, a guy like that probably won't get tired.
No, that was even the first round, mind you. It was late in the first.
I think it was the second, wasn't it? Or was it the first?
No.
Oh, man.
First round. Yeah, so they had about a minute left. So, really hard to see him getting out of that one.
Yeah. But who knows? I mean, if he didn't hit him with those body shots, that might have been the fight of the year. I mean, them going back and forth, exchanging in the first round, it was like really cool to watch because they were both tactical, but like they let loose those punches. They're not afraid to stick in the pocket and throw. So like hopefully that's a rivalry. Hopefully those guys fight again and we see some magic.
For sure. Yeah, it was definitely fireworks. So it was a good watch.
So what do you think is next for both guys, for Aldo and for Jeremy Stephens?
Well, for Aldo now, was he ranked number 4? I think he was 4. So I know they both are trying to make their case for a title shot, but obviously Jeremy now has kind of fallen off there, so he's going to have to prove something again.
Right. But he's still only like one fight away from a title shot.
Yeah, I guess you could. Yeah, I mean, he was coming off a 3-fight win streak, and then now, he dropped this fight to Aldo. So, yeah, he can definitely get back in there, I think. I mean, look, both guys are still young. They're they're both in their early 30s, 31, around there. So they're definitely in their championship years. So they definitely had to be calling people out and start trying to climb up that ladder.
Sure.
To get back on top. Trying to see who, because Aldo's dropped 2 fights to Max in a row, which is tough.
And let's be honest, if Max Holloway wins his next fight, Aldo is not going to get a third shot at the champion that he lost to twice. But if Brian Ortega wins the title, who knows? They might jump Aldo back into the title mix. I could see that happening for sure.
Correct. If I was Aldo, that's what I'd be praying for. Because, otherwise. Yeah, first of all, it's probably not a good matchup for him. I mean, he's lost to him twice. Yeah. In a row, and the
same way both
even
times.
If he wins another fight right now, the chance of getting another title fight, the same guy, like Aldo would have to pretty much clear out the division, I think.
Right.
To say like, look, there's no one else you could fight besides me.
Right. But that's not very realistic right now.
Correct. So if Ortega wins, which is a good possibility too, then it opens up because it's a new matchup.
Right.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I'd definitely say Aldo should be praying for that and get himself another title shot early.
Right. And, the UFC, they try to match people up based on who they think is deserving in their eyes, I guess. I don't know what their math is. But at the end of the day, too, they like to give title shots to the more favorable fighters, the people with a bigger fan base, people that can draw attention. And Aldo is still one of the biggest names in the lighter weight divisions. And even if we don't talk about him too much in America, he's the king of Brazil. He's one of their biggest stars. So to put him in another title shot is a really good scenario for the UFC.
For sure. Yeah, he's a big draw. I think especially in Brazil, of course. Right. But even here, Aldo's, he's been around and he's done some amazing things. He's run into some adversity as of late, but I mean, against who? Conor McGregor, Max Holloway, really the two people that like, man, I'm just looking at his record right now. Jesus, what a
holy crap,
amazing win streak.
And he fought a lot of good people too.
Yeah, Frankie Edgar, Chad Mendes, Kenny Florian, Uriah Faber.
Yeah.
These are just some big names. But
Ricardo Lamas, he's a beast.
Yeah, Ricardo Lamas for sure. We as MMA fans, we're so short-lived memory. He lost to Conor with a 13-second knockout, which sucks, right?
Right.
But I mean, it could happen to anybody, and Conor has shown clearly that he can put people down.
Right.
So Aldo got a little overzealous and he got caught. If they fight again, is it going to happen the same way? I would argue probably not. Conor might still win.
Right. No one's arguing that point, but not a 13-second.
Like he's going to get starched like that bad.
Right.
And then the only other person he's lost to in the past, his only other loss was in 2005. Okay, so you're talking about a guy who hasn't lost like in 12 years, and then he's dropped 3 fights, recently to 2 guys who are both champions.
Right. And how old was he in 2005? Like 15?
He is 31 right now, so not too far
Right?
off.
He was probably
You
like
know?
17 when he lost, what was that, his
Yeah.
first loss?
That was his only loss before. Yeah, he's got 4 losses on his record. So you're talking about a guy who went, because in 2005, that's what, 13 years? Yeah, he was 19 or something like that,
Holy
18
crap.
when he had his first loss. It's wild,
Yeah.
So I could see on 2 things. One, as the MMA fighter that Johnny come lately, he sees this. He goes, oh yeah, this guy's lost 3 times in the past, 3 years.
Right.
He's on his way out. But no, dude, he's just finally faced some adversity. Guys at even higher level than he was.
Right.
So he's got room to keep climbing up, and I hope he does, because he's a really exciting fighter to watch.
Right. And if you look at his track record too, the only people he's lost to are champions. Those are never bad losses. And not only champions, but like current champions, current people that are at the tops of their games. And combine that with he's still very young, and him beating somebody like Jeremy Stevens proves that maybe the only people that could beat him are championship caliber people.
Correct. So I think mentally for him, this is a very important win, and you can tell because if you looked how he reacted,
he was crying.
It's like he won the World Cup.
Yeah.
I know he's Brazilian, so the celebration is always bigger.
Right.
But even then, he was way more than he normally. At least that I can recall that he would react to a win.
It seemed like a weight was lifted off his shoulders, right?
Yeah, because man, you have to understand, a guy, and again, I'm still looking at this record because it's an amazing win streak. You're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 wins in a row.
In 10 years, something like that?
And 10 years about. So that's a guy that's only used to winning. And then when he faces 3 tough losses, because he didn't lose a split decision or anything, he got 3 knockouts.
Right.
That's very hard mentally to handle.
Right.
And those 3 losses, are spread over a few years too, mind you, because he lost in 2015, and then his last loss was December 2017. So it's like a 2-year span. So in his head, you got to be thinking, he's like, man, am I done?
Yeah, good point.
Is this it for me? Because I couldn't beat this guy, and I'm a champ, and I'm a legend and all that, but like I couldn't beat this guy, and I fought him twice. So is this it for me? Like that guy just has my number, and I'm never going to get back. So I can understand mentally he went through a very, very tough trial. And by beating Jeremy, he's taken the first step forward and overcoming that. And proving that to himself more than anybody else that he's still relevant and he still can do things and get back that title.
Right. And it's a huge confidence booster moving into his next fight for sure. And it's funny, man, a lot of times like it might pay more dividends later if you actually get a couple losses early in your career.
Oh yeah.
Like a guy like Jeremy Stevens, his record isn't that good. 28-15. I mean, if you look at his record as a whole, it's like, whoa, that's not that great. But if you look at his recent record, it's actually very good. But it's because he's lost a lot early on that if he loses, he's just right back on the horse. He knows what the hell's going on. Whereas a guy like Aldo, everything you just said, like it's a hard fall. It's a huge drop.
Oh yeah, being undefeated is definitely a burden, right? Because every time you go in there, if you lose, it essentially shatters your self-image.
Right.
Because I remember when I was wrestling, and I was in high school, and I had a season where I went undefeated for a good portion of it. And I think I was like 15-0, and I felt like unstoppable. Like to me, like now, this is my time. And then I went to a tournament, and in the second round, I lost, in overtime. And I started crying like a little baby because I couldn't handle it. And I was like, oh, what happened to me? Wow, and how could I lose, to this guy? And I remember my brother and my coach had to slap me around. Like, dude, get over yourself. Get back in there.
Right.
And funny enough, I met him in the consolation finals, and then I beat him.
Wow.
I got a rematch afterwards. But it's like and that's like a baby version of this, you know what I mean? We're talking about one season, so we're talking about like 2 months you know,
versus 10 years.
10 years.
Holy
crap.
So
you magnify that, by like 1,000,000 of what I felt.
Right.
So I can understand, being undefeated is a burden because the amount of time that you have, it's an asset at the same time because you develop an aura. You get that Rickson Gracie aura, just like guys like Fedor used to have. But when it gets broken, it's very difficult to pick up the pieces. It takes a real hard, mentally tough guy to get back in there and be able to reinvent himself.
Right. Yeah, and if I put it into a perspective I can understand, for the entire time I've been training jiu-jitsu, the guy was an undefeated professional fighter, and most of that time he's a world champion. Like, what the hell? That's hard to fathom. That's my perspective because I'm going through it right now. There's nothing else in my life I could point to that I could calculate a feeling I've had for 10 years, and I don't know. If people can find a way to find a perspective with their lives for 10 years' time of something that they've done, maybe as a husband or a wife, or they've been training tennis for the last 10 years. Think of that time, but you were at the top. And a lot of that time, you were like a big star. That's crazy. It's a huge fall.
Yeah, it is. Oh, man. I'm still just looking at his record. I'm like, man, I didn't realize how crazy it was.
And a lot of knockouts, a lot of finishes, too. It's not just, what is it called?
Decisions. Yeah, no, he's got 17 finishes, pretty much. 16 knockouts, 1 submission. Yeah, it's impressive.
Right. One of the most anticipated fights for me is this weekend, TJ Dillashaw versus Cody Garbrandt. What do you think about this fight? Who's your pick? What's going on in your head about this fight?
Oh man, that's a very, very interesting and tough fight to call. I know TJ got it the first time around. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know if the snake in the grass pulls it off again, or does Cody recompose himself and get in there. I will go with. Man, it's like a toss and pick them up because I think skill wise either guy could finish each other.
Right.
Right. Like for sure, TJ's got crazy explosive power. I think he's got the better footwork.
He has
Cody.
Sorry.
Like the Cody that fought Dominic Cruz was very, very calculated.
Right.
Right. Like I remember that was really the first fight that I saw him. I really noticed him. Like I heard his name being thrown around, but I'll be honest with you, I didn't really watch any of the fights before that. Right. And then when I saw some of them, and it was like he was a knockout artist,
Right.
So that was my impression of him first off. And then when I saw him fight Dominic, I'm like, man, this guy is very strategic, and he isn't just going for knockouts. In fact, he wasn't. He was like letting the fight go on because he dropped Dominic a bunch of times, and he didn't smother him. He let him get up, and he clowned him. To be honest with you, you know what I mean? He was like doing the little shoulder wiggles and shuffles and stuff like that. So like I really think like he showed that he could be very strategic and calculating. And then that wasn't the guy that fought TJ the first time around though.
Right. Now let me ask you: was that the reason he wasn't that guy, or was it because he had to fight Dominic Cruz that way, and you maybe can't fight TJ Dillashaw the exact same way?
Well, I think for sure he had to fight Dominic that way, and clearly because he made that fight look relatively easy,
right?
Compared to like usually Dominic is an impossible task.
Right. I mean, when TJ fought him, he was missing a hell of a lot against Dominic Cruz versus Cody was landing a hell of a lot.
Yes. So, that in a lot of ways, TJ can fight a lot like Dominic. Especially with his footwork, he tends to emulate a lot of it.
Right.
So I'm not sure if having that similar approach against TJ would also be very beneficial. But TJ is also a bit more dangerous than Dominic in the sense that he could finish you
Right.
at any moment. You know, Dominic is more of a long distance, a long time fighter. Like he's gonna drag you into the deep waters and
Sure.
frustrate you. You know, and doing that good mix of pot shotting you and taking you down and just
Right.
not letting you ever get a bearing in the fight.
Right. And he makes you miss a lot, which messes with your, with your
Oh yeah,
with your
you feel like
striking.
a clown. You know,
Whereas
you're swinging at air.
Yeah. Whereas TJ, he's similar in that he has a lot of setups with his footwork, but he's more on the offensive side of things versus Dominic is more on the defensive
Correct.
with the movement.
Yeah, TJ is looking to finish you.
Yeah.
He wants to end the fight. You know, and Dominic is more like, I'm just gonna piece you up this whole fight and make you really frustrated. And he'll finish you if the opportunity presents itself, but he's not like going for it. You know what I mean,
Right.
so to speak.
The way I look at this fight, I compare it to kind of Anderson Silva versus like Vitor Belfort back in the day. Like Anderson and TJ are very similar. They have tons of setups, right? Like you can never pinpoint what they're going to do. They just have so many setups, and they use their movement. They like to really reel you in with things. Even though Anderson's a little bit more counter striker, but you see what I'm saying, the setups wise. Whereas Cody and Vitor, one punch knockout. Like they're just they have so much power. So like when that fight was leading up, that's how I felt. Like, whoa, this guy can win using this style, but this guy could just end it, boom, at any point. And I feel like TJ, you kind of maybe lean towards him, obviously because he won the last fight, but also because he has so many setups. But Cody, if he just touches you, you're going down. That's what makes it like a scary fight.
Yeah, I feel like whatever I tell you I'm going to pick, I'm going to be wrong. So,
So don't pick.
I'll go with TJ. So probably Cody's going to win now. Sorry, Cody.
or congrats, Cody.
Congrats, Cody, I should be saying. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting. I do believe a lot in the whole immediate rematch thing, and it usually never goes well. I just heard a statistic where like most of the immediate rematches that have happened in the UFC are, if not all of them, are in favor of the person who won the first fight. Like immediate rematches just usually aren't the best idea.
Well, yeah, because I think the thing is, if you're gonna fight the guy the same way you did the first time, you're probably gonna have the same result, you know?
Right.
So I think a lot of it is being able to change up and recognize what you goofed up on.
Right. But
So
also
if you don't-
erasing the cobwebs of being in the loss column versus this person, your very last fight, but also the other person having this fresh confidence of beating you their very last fight.
For sure. Yeah, that's definitely a factor that's weighing against you. You know, but again, everybody responds to it differently. You know, like some people, it makes them more hungry. You know, like but there's other things going with him because this is Garbrandt's first professional loss. You know, and again, although he's had a relatively short career so far, it's only 4 years, but
right.
Again, it's 4 years, 11 wins in a row. So it's another. Is this going to shatter his self-image? You know, because again, first time he's experienced a loss, and this is a knockout loss, and now he's going to fight that same guy again.
Right.
So I think this is going to be more important for Cody than anything because
for sure.
if he drops his second one, now he's facing, I think, like another fighter crisis. You know?
Yes.
If he wins this, then it sort of erases that. It's like, oh, he could dismiss it. Like, TJ got lucky. It won't ever happen again.
Right.
But if he loses a second time to him in a row, you can't deny that, oh, you know what? TJ's got me beat. I'm not the best guy out there. Now, how do I get better? And then, that's that whole process all over again.
And hoping that TJ loses the belt so you have an opportunity again.
Correct. Because, it's going to be hard to get a third one.
Yeah, he's not getting a third one. It never happens. I mean, just like we just talked about Aldo, it rarely ever happens unless the circumstances have changed. Ironically, fourth fights are happening. Rampage and is it Rampage and Vanderlei are fighting in like a couple months?
Oh, I had no idea that was
Yeah,
going
I
on.
think
That
it's
seems
dented.
very
Yeah,
ill-advised.
right.
But,
But sometimes people get
I was
force
gonna
fights.
mention Tito and Liddell, which are
Yes.
gonna be in Golden Boy, which I think it's interesting because I listened to Chael Sonnen
Uh huh.
podcast, and he talks about this, and he's like, that fight's never happening,
Right.
and he breaks down all the reasons, and it's hard to find fault with it, you know.
Right. So true, because there's no venue set and there's no date set, and these guys are just promoting it, and it's like, well, how come you didn't tell? And didn't they have a press conference? It's like, just tell us when it's gonna happen.
Yeah, so it was all very weird, you know.
Yeah.
So his whole thing is that he thinks this guy Golden Boy is just throwing shade on the UFC and telling them to back off, you know,
Right.
their boxing aspirations or whatnot. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
a weird one. But case in point, if it does happen, the circumstances for a third fight have changed drastically. Because now these guys are in a completely different era than when they once were.
exactly. Yeah,
Right.
you're talking about decades
Right.
to get
People that watch MMA now maybe not have ever watched MMA when Chuck was fighting. They might have been kids or just not interested.
for sure.
So people
Yeah.
just don't even know them. So very interesting. I mean, I don't want to see it happen, but I'll watch it if it happens.
Yeah, it's like a train wreck.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I mean, Tito, he's a great guy, and Chuck's an amazing fighter. But man, do I want to see guys in their 40s throwing it down?
Yeah.
I don't. I wouldn't ask for it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But like you said, if it's coming to you, I'm like, okay, show it to me. You know, like for nostalgia's sake. But I don't think this is a fight that the fans are really clamoring for.
No.
I don't think anybody's asking for it. So you're sort of forcing a spectacle. You know?
Right. Yeah, and at least if they were split 1-1 or it was just one fight before, but when you hype it up, you can't hype up the fact that it's a rivalry because it's really not. It's 2 wins versus 0 wins.
Yeah.
And then what's the next level? It's the trash talking element. Let's face it, Tito's not very good at it. Chuck never really did it. So how do you even promote this thing? You don't. I mean, it's gonna look like a crap show, honestly.
Yeah, it's gonna be very cringy.
Yeah,
That's
cringy.
what I would expect. Because yeah, I mean that's the one thing that Chael has on him. He could talk and he's funny, it's witty. You know, someone who's good at like Conor McGregor is another guy who can make it work. You know,
Right.
that Tito and Chuck were from like you said, a whole other era of MMA, and that stuff wasn't really necessary.
Right.
You know, it was just about showing up and fighting.
Right. But even particularly, they're not very good at it.
Correct. That's not really their skill set. I mean, the one thing I think Tito's version of trash talk was when he would do the gravedigger at the end of his fight.
Yes.
You know, I think he was the first guy, if I can recall, that had like such controversy about how he celebrated the win.
Right.
But that was really the extent of it. You know, other than that, there wasn't really anything enticing about, you know, or
I advise
anything
everybody
that drew attention about how he would talk or fight.
Right. I advise everybody to go back and watch the press conferences, mainly the pre-fight press conference of Tito Ortiz versus Chael Sonnen. If you want to get a glimpse of the cringeworthy trash talk that is Tito Ortiz, he's a great fighter. I'm not knocking him. He's just not very good at trash talking. And Chael, so you got a not so good trash talker versus Chael, who is the best at it. And that back and forth, those exchanges, like that's a glimpse into what can come. It was actually quite funny. But I advise everybody to go back and watch that. There's some things that Chael said that were like, you know, really stingers, if you will.
I think it's funny because they were both on The Apprentice too, you know. So I could see a lot of ways where Chael would probably goof on him.
Right.
But it's interesting because they're two very, very different people. You know, very different backgrounds, but at the same time, they kind of started up in the same era. I mean, Chael a little bit later, but not that much later than Chuck.
Right.
I mean, than Tito.
Ironically, they fight the same.
Yeah, it's true. It's one of the things I think Chael could be so much better than he is right? 'Cause I like his personality. I think he's really funny. You know what I mean? And he's smart too. But him getting caught in so many submissions, to me, is aggravating.
Yeah.
Like, that shouldn't happen.
Especially like triangles in particular.
God, I know.
Yeah.
Because I see him, and man, like, he has very good striking. You know, like, it's undersold, but like, he outstruck Anderson.
Yeah.
You know, in that first fight. You know, and he's outstruck a lot of people.
Right.
He gets some problems, ironically, when he takes him down.
I feel like he was a product of the curse of ground and pound. You know, a lot of people they fall in love with being a good wrestler and being able to keep somebody down and staying in their guard and just ground and pounding them. But what's more effective is like make an attempt to pass the guard, like advance your position. Twofold. One, it's going to be a more exciting fight, and two, you're going to open up a bigger realm of possibility of winning the fight and lowering your chances of losing. Like, it's less likely that somebody's going to submit you from side control or while they're defending a guard pass or even half guard, honestly. But from close guard, like, you know, it's less exciting and you keep getting caught in a freaking triangle. What are you doing, man?
Yeah, I mean, man, getting caught in the triangle is a lot of mistakes, right? Because essentially it means you have poor posture, right? Because you can't get triangled if your posture is good. It just won't happen. And if you're ground and pounding from poor posture, you're already messing up. Because striking makes submissions a lot easier.
Right.
Because whenever you strike, your weight is going to come off balance. And generally that means you're going to be leaning forward. So it's going to break your posture already. So you got to try to, you know, not throw yourself so far off. But a lot of these guys, and again, the Team Quest guys, you know, from back in the day, they all did the same thing. Like, I watched Randy Couture fight, and I'd be like, what are you doing? Like, he'll be grabbing the head with both hands, and then he'll punch from the closed guard with one hand. Like, he's giving up arm bars all the time.
Right.
You know, and they all kind of had that same strategy. I'm not sure, like, where they learned that or whatnot, but it was definitely a disservice because, like, you should never be grabbing the head unless you're doing a can opener and it's going to be for a split second, you know?
Right.
It's a very danger zone area, you know?
I guess they did that in a time when jiu-jitsu wasn't as high level amongst the masses. So they might not have faced too many repercussions of doing that.
I suppose, you know, because it's such a bad habit. And a lot of the stuff that he gets caught with, it's because of that. You know, like for me, I like striking from the closed guard. Like, I don't have a problem with ground and pound. But it's strategic, you know, like the way I always tell people, that if I'm in the guard, I'm striking conservatively. Right. Because like I told you, every time I strike, I lose balance. And that is an opportunity for my opponent to sweep, to submit, or to escape. So when I'm in the closed guard and I'm striking on the top, I see myself as a sniper. I'm picking shots. And the shots that I do land are power shots. Because I'm going to throw one, boom, and then out. Right. And generally, I'm picking the same areas, right? If I'm not just going to just throw a punch anywhere. I'm going to aim for your eye, or I'm going to aim for the bridge of your nose. And I'll throw every strike to that same part until I break it down. You know, a lot of people are good at that. They throw elbows, they're aiming at the eyes because they're trying to cut open. Right. Smart move, right? Or if I'm going to the body, I'll aim for the liver. Right. But I'm not throwing salvos from the closed guard because he can pull me in at any moment and get me in a submission or just break my posture and stall me out. Right. It's only when the guard is opened where I could go to a combat base or advance to half guard, where now I could start to rip a little bit more because the threats have diminished greatly. Right. The loss of my balance is, you don't lose that much balance from half guard because you're pretty sturdy, you know, unless he's going for a sweep or whatnot. Sure. You know, or if you're like in combat base, you know, you're pretty good. You're pretty good because your knee's over his hips. It's going to be hard for him to catch anything there. Right. And there's nothing like the closed guard pulling your hips forward. Exactly. Yeah. You know, but when I see people throwing like salvos and punches from closed guard, I'm like, you don't have the fundamentals right. Right. This is not the position for that. This is the position where you break him down a little bit and make him open his guard. Once that's it, then now we can ourselves open up our striking game a little bit more. Sure. Yeah, a great point. Hopefully
some people listen to this and take that advice, because a little bit more strategy, a little bit more focus on strategy from the closed guard can increase the chances. And again, even with that said, it will make you more of an exciting fighter. Just doing that, just causing the person to open the guard and advancing the position. We always get frustrated with the person that stays in closed guard. And it's not because we don't like, or even not staying close guard, but staying in half guard, just staying in a position because we feel they're not advancing the fight. It doesn't look like they're trying to finish and win the fight. But advancing the position, opening up the guard, opening up the half guard, opening up the game will make it more exciting, and it'll open up the finishes as well.
Correct. You have to know the proper time and place to do things, and I think for me, the closed guard is not the place to explode in a flurry or to have bad posture. You're in a dangerous position. You got to work your way out of it and get into a better position for yourself where you can open up more. And I think the strategy is a big part of it. Another thing that people rarely do is body shots. It's like, that's the one strike you can do from the closed guard that doesn't really ruin your posture, because you're not aiming at the head, so your weight is not shifting all the way forward.
Right.
I could throw it straight right down the pipe into the stomach, and I don't really lose balance. I don't really sacrifice my posture or anything. And you start feeding a guy a lot of body shots, the guard's going to start to open, because you're weakening his abdomen muscles, which are pulling a lot for his legs. So, yeah, I definitely, because I'll tell you, I love ground and pound. I think there's no better feeling than punching a man in the face when you're on top of him. As someone who's done it, I don't know why, but it's just the way it is. And you can ask anybody the same thing. It just feels real good. So I always tell people I'd rather be in an exchange where it's one-sided than standing. Because when you're striking and you're on your feet, it's an exchange. It goes both ways.
Right.
I could be the number one kickboxer in the world facing, let's say, a guy who's number 10. I'm going to get hit.
Right.
Now, I'm probably going to get more hits than him, but it's like you're playing poker.
Right.
Maybe the odds are like 65-35.
Right.
But there's still a chance I can lose.
There's always a chance with punches.
Yeah. Now, when I'm in mount and I'm throwing strikes and I'm the number one, striker, and he's the number 10.
Right.
There's like 0% chance I'm going to get knocked out from the bottom.
Even if you're number,
somebody got knocked out the other day.
Right.
Which is really weird.
Right.
But 99 out of 100, you're winning that one.
Right.
Without taking any damage.
And maybe that guy was like number 90 versus number 1 striker on the bottom.
Exactly. So I always say, like, if you can get it to the ground, get it to the ground, because you're not going to be taking damage. So that's a good exchange if you know what you're doing. The thing is, like you said, a lot of people don't know what they're doing, and they're kind of goofing it up.
On that note, my friend, we're running out of time. We should go. But thanks a lot for dropping this knowledge.
Oh, no problem. It was my pleasure. We missed one fight to cover here, Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier. I think there's just one thing we can say about that, which was the coach goofed.
What part are you talking about?
Well, when Eddie Alvarez in the second round had him mounted against the cage, and Dustin was sitting up, and it's an awkward position to strike from.
Yes.
I don't like mounting there. It's weird.
Right. You can't really throw any power shots at all.
Yeah, and you could get reversed there because you're too vertical.
Right. He can almost double leg you.
Yes.
Right.
So it's an awkward, but you got to scoop him out a little bit, I think, before you go there. But he was there, and he was maintaining control, and you could see on camera, and the coach tells him, and he motions at a 12-6 elbow. Now, I don't think he was actually calling for a 12-6 elbow because he was pointing at his elbow, but he was making the motion like a 12-6. And Eddie is staring right at him, and then after digesting it, he throws that 12-6 elbow.
Wow. I missed that part.
Yeah, if you watch it again, you can see it on camera. You can see the coach moving 12-6 and pointing at his elbow. I think he was just trying to tell him, throw an elbow. But because what he was doing, it was easily misinterpreted. And look, Eddie's a warrior, and I don't think he's thinking at that point.
Right, it's autopilot.
He was autopilot, and he's doing what he's supposed to do as an athlete, which is listen to the coach blindly, right? Like as a coach, that's one of the best things you can have is an athlete who actually listens to you,
right?
Because it's so hard to get through to people sometimes, and it's the most frustrating thing as a coach because you're like totally helpless when you're watching somebody and they don't follow your guidance. But when you get someone who actually listens and you gave them the wrong advice, oh God, so bad.
Right, and it shows how one mistake can turn the table so quickly.
Oh yeah, because I'll tell you, there were a lot of weird calls in this UFC. I forget with that referee that he was standing people up after like 5 seconds from the close guard.
Yeah.
You know, like there was some weird calls, but none of those really seemed to have an effect on the outcome. But this one really did, and it was a proper call.
For sure, yeah. I mean, even though he missed, it doesn't mean it was the right move to make, right? It's still illegal whether you land it or miss it. Because if I don't, what's up?
I'm sorry. So he hit, right? But he aimed at the shoulder, which again, not really a strong. I mean, it will accumulate damage over time, but definitely not worth the exchange there.
Right.
You know, so
was that legal? Elbowing the shoulder?
You can elbow the shoulder, but it was an illegal strike.
So down to 6, no matter what, is illegal. Whether it's head, elbow, the foot, doesn't matter.
You're correct. So that 12-6 elbow is illegal anywhere.
Right.
Any body part you hit. Now, if he was throwing a knee to the shoulder, totally legal.
Right.
Right. Or a downward punch, totally legal.
Right.
Or if he just threw the elbow horizontally instead of the 12-6, legal.
Right.
So it was just direction. Now, I'll tell you this. This is the stupidest freaking rule ever created, in the UFC. And I think I watched the podcast. I think Rogan was interviewing John McCarthy, and he was at the original rules meeting. And I guess the story was that one of the commissioners of the athletic commission saw some like traditional karate guys breaking bricks using like 12-6 elbow, and thought that was too dangerous because he imagined what it could do to the human body.
Oh my God.
You know? Yeah, so the logic was totally not there. And like, McCarthy said he was like face palming the whole time, but they had to compromise on some stuff to make it happen.
Right.
But yeah, it's a retarded rule.
Right. And the irony of it too is if you're in a closed guard, that same elbow is no longer 12-6, so it's legal.
Correct. So it lacks any logic, right?
Yeah.
Because changing the direction, if it doesn't change, the mechanics of the move, what, you're thinking gravity is going to be pulling that much harder because he's going, from the ceiling to the ground? Like, come on. Then we should ban like downward strikes. Then,
Exactly.
Like, it's ridiculous. But regardless, rules are rules. The rules. I don't blame Eddie as much. I mean, because he's on autopilot, and he's trusting his coach, and he was looking at his coach who was doing that. The coach goofed. I don't think obviously the coach didn't do it maliciously, but he needs to be a lot more aware of what he's showing his athlete.
Right.
It sucks, that it's kind of like it wasn't obviously a malicious thing. It's just you're doing things spur of the moment. He probably saw the opportunity to throw an elbow.
Sure.
And I think the type of elbow he was calling for was actually like a sideways elbow where the arm is in that 12-6 position, but he's swiping it inwards.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Right? Like in Thais do that all the time. And they knock people out with that all the time.
So like a 3-9 elbow with your hand pointed up.
Yeah. So you're like a chicken wing. You're just slapping inwards. So the side of the elbow is catching him on the temple.
Right.
That's a good strike.
Yeah, like the inside of the elbow, you're saying.
Yes. Mm. So it's a legit strike. And I remember I've seen that before, and I remember I'm like, I don't know how much power it has. But then I saw some Thai fights, people getting knocked out, like cold.
Right.
I'm like, oh, okay, that's legit.
Right. And in close quarters, it's like perfect. It works.
Yeah.
That's what it's designed for.
Exactly. And you could cut somebody too, So if that was what he was calling for, which I think it was, good call. But the way he showed it didn't look that way. It looked like he was showing 12-6, So. And I could see how it could be misinterpreted by the fighter looking through a cage and trying to fight someone off,
Sure. And it didn't help that right after that, Dustin just beat him in the stand-up round. That fight could have easily kept going on, we wouldn't have said anything about it. But it's a good example, like a good learning lesson for everybody involved and everybody in the future, so that it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, you definitely got to be more clear with your instructions, making sure to avoid showing illegal strikes.
Oh, my God.
God, I feel for him because it sucks.
Yeah.
I know he didn't want that for his athlete. You know what I mean? And,
Right. Hey, it is what it is. I'm sure he's going to come back stronger than ever.
For sure.
Cool, man. Great talk. I think that's it. We covered everything. I hope you enjoy the fights this weekend. TJ and Cody and DJ Demetrius Johnson versus Henry Cejudo. It's going to be a fun night of fights.
Absolutely. Thanks, Abe, and look forward to talking to you about that one.
For sure.